resources. Now therefore, I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2018 in the City of Nampa as Parks and Recreation Month. Jennifer, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for reading the proclamation, and thank you, Mayor and City Council, for letting me come address you about Parks and Recreation Month. So July is National Parks and Rec Month. This is an initiative put together by the National Recreation and Park Association. And really, the purpose of this month is to celebrate and acknowledge all the ways that Parks and Recreation has the power to transform our lives. From providing us places to play, get fit, stay healthy, fostering new relationships, and forging that connection with nature. Our close-to-home community parks and recreation facilities provide essential services and improve our quality of life. So Nampa Parks and Recreation Facilities are a place where people can gather and participate in wholesome activities and have fun. By increasing the awareness of parks and recreation programs in Nampa, we increase play, and activity will increase among all age groups, and we will ultimately experience a healthier community. We strive to provide amenities that will encourage people to get active, create community, and make Nampa a great place to live. So the theme this year is that Parks and Recreation is a lifetime of discovery. So it's all about from all the way from kids to senior adults, how they can participate in parks and recreation activities. So what we've done is we've put together a discovery map, and we're promoting it throughout Nampa, encouraging kids and adults to grab a map, fill out the activities on the map, and then they submit it for a prize to us. So it's just a way to encourage people to get out, experience what we have, everything from visit a playground to take one of our fitness in the park classes, go watch a movie in the park, could be a variety of different things. The recreation center, golfing, all of those are part of our parks and recreation system. So it's a great opportunity for families to discover what we offer. If you wouldn't mind, I would love to hand out maps to you so that you guys can see what we're doing, and I'm open to any questions or comments.
All good.
Jennifer, thank you for the work that you do, and Darren, thank you for your leadership. Thank you, Darren. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, this is the opportunity for anyone wishing to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item. So I'd like to ask, is there anyone that would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Go ahead and come forward. You'll have 3 minutes, and please state your name and address and the item that you would like to discuss.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. My name is Marcia Yappa, and I live at 1403 4th Street South. And do you sometimes like to light a candle when you're cursing darkness? I do. And so with that in mind, how about an anniversary ball celebrating marriage? That would be a night of dancing with your spouse. Some of us thought it'd be a really good idea, including James Brown at the Civic Center. In fact, he wants to give us a really good discount to use the center. And Kenton Lee has agreed to be the Master of Ceremonies. I'm hesitant to go ahead and do this because I have organized other things which had extremely disappointing turnouts, and advertising costs can be staggering. However, I went to a lavender festival on Saturday, which was advertised entirely on Facebook, and they were swamped. So my spirits have gone up again. They go up and down as I think about this. James Brown has set aside the date of February 20th next year for this. Did I mention he's giving us really good discounts for the use of the Civic Center? We will have music, dancing lessons, lots of laughs, prizes, and fun, a little bit of refreshment as well. So I'm throwing this out because James is going to hold the date for a month, the month of July. So during that time, we'll decide whether we can really pull this off. And I will need some help and ideas. So I'll give each of you one of these. And if you have any ideas, my information is here. And do I have any more time?
I think you have about 60 seconds.
About 60 seconds, well. My daughter told me that I should get a committee of probably women together to sell tickets. The Civic Center would sell tickets as well, but she says I should get a committee to do that, so that, otherwise, she said it would be a fiasco. So that's something to think about.
Okay. Marcia, thank you for your vision. That's wonderful. So thank you for sharing that with us this evening. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on a non-agenda item? Okay, seeing none, please raise your hands, those that are wanting to speak on an agenda item. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we've got a few people that are speaking on an agenda item, which is the Harriman Report special presentation. We're going to hold those for just a moment, and then is that yours? Okay, so I think what I saw is everyone that wants to speak on an agenda item is wishing to speak on the special presentation. Is that correct? Okay, that said, that is our next item, so we will start with those wishing to speak. You have 3 minutes, and as you come forward, please state your name and your address, and then we'll get started, and so you each have 3 minutes. Larry, do you want to start?
Why not?
Yes, there you go.
Don't start the clock till I get there.
Okay.
Thank you. Ron Harriman has performed a great service for the city of Nampa. I commend Ron for his diligence and determination in proposing reclassification of Indian Creek from water to the United States to an agricultural drain. Ron has developed a strong rationale for his proposal, and I fully support his recommendations. However, I am concerned that there will be an effort to conflate reclassification of Indian Creek and our desire to avoid the unnecessary and costly phosphorus reductions required by the NPDES permit. The phosphorus limits were imposed by the EPA and Idaho Department of Environmental Quality to facilitate lowering of phosphorus in the Boise River and resultant algal blooms. The regulators erroneously believed that during summer the phosphorus discharged by Nampa into Indian Creek flowed into the Boise River and was a major contributor to the algae problem. What they failed to recognize, and what Ron's report clearly shows, is that during the irrigation system, Nampa's phosphorus never reaches the Boise River. Rather, Indian Creek is diverted into Riverside Canal, and essentially all the nutrients are beneficially used in agriculture. There is a summer nutrient problem that needs to be remedied, but Nampa is a non-participant and should not be penalized. The regulators have no justification in imposing the restrictive summer limits that should be rescinded immediately. Nampa's phosphorus grows corn, not algae. The reason I don't want to link phosphorus relief and reclassification is the time involved in reclassification would likely require over 2 years. During that time, effort and money will be spent on pre-planting for phase 2, which concludes phosphorus reduction, which started last month. Procurement is scheduled to start in less than a year. It is critical that Nampa get this summer phosphorus limit lifted immediately. Every day of delay in regulatory relief results in wasted funds. How much can we save by getting the summer phosphorus limit removed? Phase 2 is slated to cost $189,900,000, almost $200 million. 53% of that cost is regulatory, and 30% is regulatory and future growth. In spite of numerous requests, I have not been able to get a definite answer on the cost specifically for phosphorus removal. I learned from Idaho Department of Quality that their estimate of phosphorus removal is about $38 million. If we use $38 million as the minimum savings in capital cost, include finance costs for over 30 years and annual O&M costs for this sophisticated system, the savings become eye-popping. I fully support Ron's report and urge the council's support. However, I request immediate and meaningful action to get the summer phosphorus limits rescinded and pursue a creative solution to the winter limits, including routing Indian Creek to Riverside Canal during winter. Anything less is poor stewardship of taxpayer dollars.
Thank you, Larry.
Did I go over?
You were exactly 8 seconds, man. You were good. You did good. Okay, who is next? Hubert. Well, Hubert or Paul?
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I hope this showing my best side doesn't make me look fat. Anyway,
Good one, Hubert.
there's 30 seconds, you were right. A friend of mine was asked the question, why didn't you bring all of the information in the Harriman and Olmsted report and the Riverside use of water up before? It is a very good question, and the answer is we did not know that no water flows into the Boise River during irrigation season. And I have shown you the photographs at a recent council meeting. This apparently is also the case with the EPA, IDEQ, and our advisors Brown and Caldwell. I attended every meeting of NWAG and do not recall Riverside Canal use of water ever being brought up. Another obvious question is why didn't somebody follow Indian Creek to the mouth and verify what Idaho Department of Resources shows on their flow charts? No water from Indian Creek flows into the Boise River during the 7-month irrigation season. And I have a attachment is available if you would like to see it. You can readily see the implications. The regulations on phosphorus should be moot, as our phosphorus is put to beneficial use, just as Director Tippett and EPA Administrator Haladek have communicated in letters to me. Put it on farm ground. The same with temperature regulation, as this water is put to beneficial use on farm ground. Warmer water is actually beneficial to crop growth. There are errors in the NPDES report which need to be corrected, and there are statements that if errors are found, they will reconsider. Based on the Harriman report, Dr. Olmsted's report, and my own research, it is time to say, whoa, reevaluate and come to a common sense renegotiation on this. And I fully support what Larry and Ron is going to tell you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Paul Raymond.
Paul Raymond, 547 Valley Drive, Nampa. I had a choice between Andy Griffith reruns and tonight, so it was close. What I want to speak about a little bit is the wastewater issue. I stood on the bank of the Boise River connector to the confluence of Wilson Drain and Indian Creek and saw no water running into the Boise River. I was shocked because I had not heard that before. There's not a drop moving. The water's stagnant. It hasn't been moving, and I was told it hasn't been moving for a number of years. But there's backwater, that's static water that stands there because of its proximity to the Boise River. Anyway, there's a lot of discussion about reuse. The discharge permit, as I see it, is not a reuse permit. It's a discharge permit to Indian Creek. Reuse at this point is a moot point. We are reusing the water to the extent that it's run to the Boise, into the Riverside Irrigation District system and being uptake by the crops there. What I want to focus on is that I had 3 conversations with the director of the Riverside Irrigation Canal Director, and he said that he would be excited, but he did not have board approval to take the water in perpetuity to through his system like it is now. They currently have a contract with Idaho Power to take the water in Indian Creek, and he also indicated that he has the capacity to take the water in the wintertime to the Dixie Drain. And so my thought is that why doesn't the council move forward? They have responsibility to EPA, and until there's a letterhead with green on it and that flower-looking thing that says that you don't have to have the phosphorus removal, we have to move forward to some extent. But at the very least, the city council could enter into an agreement with Riverside Canal to take the water and get that out of the way, and then show that to EPA. And show EPA we don't have any reason to have to remove phosphorus or have temperature reduction. There's discussion about the Phyllis Canal. taking the water and transferring it to the Phyllis Canal. Well, that's probably doable, but if there's more money involved with the plumbing and the relocation, it's the same system or the same event. You're going to put water into an irrigation district. It's which district do you choose to do so? You're already running into the Riverside Canal system, so why not continue to do that? And sometime down the road, if we're really focused on reuse, we'll already have the phosphorus is still in the water. We haven't removed it, and that water can be used well on reused property, like for industrial use or irrigation or whatever. So that's my position. I'd just like to press out as far as I can. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last presenter? Thank you for reminding me of your name.
Mayor, City Council, Ed Parnell, 505 Cool Creek Circle here in Nampa. I simply stand here tonight in support of Harriman and Larry and Hubert and all of the, I have been absolutely overwhelmed by the quality and the willingness of my fellow citizens, including many of you here sitting in the council seats, to take up on an additional basis to any responsibilities or anything else that you're doing, an issue that's been very pressing. So in the interest of time and to let Ron get down to it, I simply agree that time is of the essence, and I leave it to your leadership to determine the best route forward to deal with the information that I know Ron is going to present. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, is there anyone that we missed that wanted to have the opportunity to speak on an agenda item? Okay, if not, Ron, I think we're ready. Our next item on the agenda is a special presentation, which is made by Ron Harriman. And thank you for being here.
Ronald Harriman, 329 Creekside Place, Nampa. Mayor, council, come before you tonight at the invitation of one of your council members who asked me to write a letter to the paper. And I told him at that point that I would not write that letter without doing a bunch of research. So Mayor and Council, I come before you this evening to provide the public testimony of the facts I found researching this issue. Frankly, it's disheartening to discover what was plainly visible to anyone who might have fully investigated the issue. It appears that the money of Nampa is spent to comply with the Clean Water Act in the eradication of phosphorus, which I believe is around 39 million, achieved very little. Sadly, in my research, the same requirements were placed on CUNA. They spent somewhere in the excess of 30 million, also to correct nothing. When the data are reviewed, it also appears that to proceed with cooling the water coming from the wastewater facility will also not achieve the goals of the EPA required of this community. I have extensive research file and do not intend to go into depth unless you have questions. The report you have received covers the subject to the depth. The problem, the citizens of Nampa have been required to upgrade the wastewater facility to keep the phosphorus and warm water from contaminating Indian Creek and the Boise River at the price of $165 million. This was required under the Clean Water Act to keep the waters of the U.S. clean. I support the Clean Water Act concept, but the water in stream we identify as Indian Creek is not and does not contaminate the Boise River during the crucial months of the irrigation system. The water within Indian Creek is diverted at the head gates west of Caldwell and completely consumed as irrigation water by the Riverside Canal Company. Historical documents covering the period prior to the settlement of the Boise River Valley record Indian Creek as an intermittent watershed that flowed only for a few months during the spring runoff. Historically, none of the runoff ever reached the area beyond CUNA. The water within Indian Creek only began occurring after irrigation began in the late 1800s. This is important as the restriction and requirement placed upon Nampa were based upon the assumption that Indian Creek was a natural tributary to the Boise River, and water flowing through this channel carried pollution into the Boise River, degrading the river and in violation of the Clean Water Act. When the Clean Water Act passed, one of the requirements was to classify all surface water, even if the water did not qualify within the description of the EPA developed and issued. Indian Creek became classified as cold water salmanoid spawning. However, Indian Creek is not now, nor was it ever, a natural perennial stream. The water within the channel is not only historically identified as irrigational seepage and runoff, but is also recorded as such in at least 8 citations I have on record within the EPA, the IDEQ, the U.S. Corps of Engineers, and the U.S. Geological Service documents. Its actual function is that of a conduit of irrigation water or a drain, and classifying canals or irrigation drains is in opposition to Idaho law. To reiterate, no natural water flows within Indian Creek. It is a canal functioning as an irrigational drain. Further, while some of the water flows into the Boise River during the months in the winter, it does not have a continuous service contact with the waters of the U.S. for more than 6 months. Under the new 2015 rule, which will take effect in 2020 by the U.S. Corps of Engineers and the EPA, it is not a jurisdictional water, and for several other reasons more than this. Because of this requirements placed on the city of Nampa are in violation of the intent of the Clean Water Act and the Idaho law concerning irrigation of waters. What has been forced on Nampa so far did not and will not improve the water within the Boise River or any U.S. water. The money spent went down the drain. I will not discuss the legal SCOTUS decisions nor the present changes coming from the EPA unless someone asks questions, and I will not, by instructions, deal with the legal in this particular document. As Indian Creek is now classified as cold water salmanoid spawning and as secondary use recreation, the Idaho DEQ was required. They didn't have any choice. They were required to prepare a report for the EPA on the Idaho surface water, which they entitled a TDML or TMDL. This report on the chemical, physical, and physical characters of the aquatic biota within the water body. When they analyzed the water to test from the creek temperature and biological life within the stream, they placed restrictions on Nampa to control the phosphorus and the temperature as it is assumedly discharged during the summer into the Boise River. However, apparently they never consulted the report on the Boise River, nor did they inspect the full reaches and disposal of the water from Indian Creek, nor, it appears, did they consult the records of the USGS or previous studies of the water within Indian Creek. Had they done so, they would have recognized that during the irrigation season over 6 months a year since 1885, all of the irrigation water drainage that forms the water within Indian Creek was taken from April to October by the Riverside Canal Company and used for irrigation. I provided each of you the present records of the diversion of the water in Indian Creek. You should have that before you. It shows no water passing those gates. Previous to this time, some of the water from that creek actually did flow through those gates because they leaked. I could go into a lot more detail here, but I'm not going to take up that time, and I'm sure that you'll have the reports covering that. The water from the Nampa wastewater facility is mixed with the Wilson drain and the canal runoff prior to Caldwell. It is then combined with water of the Riverside Canal. At that point, Napa's effluent makes up only 4% of the water, and again is completely used for irrigation. The amount of water from the Riverside Canal that reaches U.S. water is minuscule and enters the Snake River near the Idaho border. We have been informed that Idaho Power tests this discharge and it is basically free of phosphorus, as phosphorus adheres to plant life while irrigating the fields. This fact alone requires that the IDEQ and the EPA rework their past reports reflecting this fact and remove all requirements for phosphorus from their reports concerning Nampa and Kuna. According to the factual data and the use of the water from Indian Creek, both Nampa and Kuna have been in compliance or ahead of compliance for the existence of both wastewater plants. I have to regress here a little bit because we need to deal with temperature. As noted, if it's not reclassified, the phosphorus requirements will stay in place to protect the biota. As noted, the EPA forced the IDEQ to classify this Indian Creek as cold water salmonid spawning. They require the water be cooled to allow roe or eggs of the fish to incubate, and they list the temperature required as 55.4 degrees Fahrenheit, with a maximum summer daily peak of 66.2 degrees Fahrenheit. However, let alone the fact that the last survey of fish found only 4 trout in the 16-mile stretch and no juvenile fish. Their own records in the USGS record temperatures of as high as 76 degrees Fahrenheit, and achieving the required temperature due to geographical conditions is infeasible. The ground temperature, 3 to 8 feet below the surface, which is the level that the irrigation seepage into Indian Creek drain, is from 52 to 56 degrees Fahrenheit, or higher year-round. And the temperature of the aquifer lying 60 to 200 feet below the surface averages 58 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The city engineer from Kuna informed me that he has been unable to achieve the required EPA temperature, where the effluent from Kuna plant discharges into Indian Creek, which is 1.5 miles above the split, or below the split in Indian Creek, where the New York Canal water is diverted from the Indian Creek channel into the canal at Lake Lowell. He also tells me that most of the time when checking the discharge, there's only about 3 cubic feet seconds of irrigation water in the creek bed. The Kuna discharge is upstream 5.8 miles from the point where Nampa's effluent enters the Indian Creek drain. At this point, the EPA and the IDEQ are requiring that Nampa cool water to meet the EPA imposed standards. Of course, Nampa cannot cool the water above the plant, and cooling the water from the plant to satisfy the requirement would require the water leaving the plant to be much cooler than the 55.4 degrees Fahrenheit. The water within Indian Creek immediately above the Nampa wastewater facility averages around 4 to 12 cubic feet seconds, depending upon the current runoff from the ditches in the fields. The effluent from the Nampa wastewater facility averages around 14 cubic feet seconds, which means the water coming from the Nampa wastewater facility would have to be cooled to around 46 degrees Fahrenheit in order to meet the requirement of the EPA. However, this would only be good for 5.9 miles downstream, where Indian Creek is intercepted and mixed with the Wilson Drain, with more than twice the water of Indian Creek. The Wilson Creek you walk along in the Greenbelt is actually an irrigational drain that starts out at the Nampa Fish Hatchery with a water temperature of 59 degrees, making the requirement of temperature impossible to achieve. In summation, Nampa is already and has been in compliance with 4 phosphorus due to the use of the Riverside Canal but the temperature requirements cannot be achieved by Nampa due to natural conditions. This is incidentally also true of the downstream, which everybody hears about, we're trying to protect, like the Snake River. Of the Snake River as it flows into the Snake through the Magic Valley, including Clear Lakes and Thousand Springs, comes out of the Snake River aquifer at 59 degrees. And present August temperatures in the Snake River, according to the USGS, are in the lower 70s. As proven within the report, none of the water from the Nampa wastewater facility is entering the Boise River from May to October. As such, Nampa, in consideration of the honest cost, increases of fees from the demands of the EPA and the IDEQ, should stop all funding of the requirements at this point and demand that the IDEQ reconstruct the Boise TDML and the Indian Creek TDML and both of the MPDESs to correct the data therein and to reflect the fact that Indian Creek is not a tributary to the Boise River from April to mid-October. Recognize the fact that none of the phosphorus from Indian Creek from mid-April to mid-October enters the Boise River. It is therefore not a contributor to any of the U.S. water during that period. They have listed as critical period. I'm also recommending that Nampa begin the process of requiring Indian Creek to be declassified, as it is in fact a 19-mile-long agricultural drain, which according to Idaho law is not within the jurisdiction of the IDEQ. As the Idaho law, agricultural water is not to be regulated. Reclassification or removal from classification is a statutory process under Idaho law, Title 39 Idaho Code, wherein Nampa would petition the IDEQ for reclassification. The director of the IDEQ then is required to consult with the watershed and the basin groups, require a new use attainability analysis, or UAA, of the water be developed according to the relevant facts presented. When this is complete, the director will decide in favor or against reclassification. If the decision is to maintain the present classification, Nampa is entitled to a judicial confirmation hearing where all of the factual and historical data is presented to the judge, and the judge will make the final decision. After researching the data, my opinion is any judge reviewing the factual data would decide in favor of declassification. This is not a problem that the present city government is responsible for. You have no guilt in this particular instance. But it is the mayor and the council's responsibility to represent the citizens of Nampa, not the EPA and the IDEQ, who created the problem by incompetence. Previous Nampa administrations have negligently allowed this condition to have occurred. We have already paid $39 million for a problem that did not exist, and we should not be forced to bear the cost of future mistakes by the EPA and the IDEQ, the city of Nampa, nor the engineers of Brown and Caldwell. Nampa should not proceed until these issues are resolved. The citizens of Nampa are entitled to protection from these onerous requirements. Any questions? Thank you.
Ron, thank you for your work. We appreciate your diligence. And thank you for taking the time to provide us both a report and to present this evening. And thank you for the rest of you gentlemen that presented this evening. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, as we conclude, I want it on the record with the clerk that I did request Mr. Harriman to speak here, and that I requested it was an action item, just for the record.
Thank you. I would like to say that it is not an action item based on council's recommendation, so it isn't that we're ignoring that action item request, but it has been recommended by legal counsel that we not take action this evening till we have opportunity to further discuss it due to the legal nature of the request. So, Perfect. Okay, so it is about 7:12, and 7 o'clock is the time that we typically begin our public hearings. So for those of you next on the agenda, we're going to have to wait a little bit. And we are going to move at this time to our public hearings, which is number 7 on the agenda. And our first public hearing this evening is it's regarding the fee increase for recycling. And hi, Rochelle. Are you our applicant that would like to present first? Okay, we'll start with you. So our process in a public hearing is that we have a presentation regarding what it is. If there is a staff report, and I don't know if there is a staff report on this particular item, I don't think so. And then we have an opportunity for public testimony, and then you get to come back again, and then we go from there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Rochelle Klein with Republic Services, 2130 West Franklin Road in Meridian, Idaho. And thank you for inviting me back here tonight. So I'm here tonight just to reintroduce again the recycling program continuation fee. So I've given a couple of presentations here, and I didn't bring it again tonight. I don't know if that's required at a public hearing, but we have historically collected materials here in Nampa, and they've been sent overseas to China, whose markets are now closed to us. And to give you some perspective, we've been sending hundreds of thousands of tons over the years to China. In this last 6 months, we've sent 0. So it's entirely closed. We've pivoted to Vietnam and to Indonesia and Malaysia, and those markets are now really impacted, and so they've now really restricted the recyclables into their countries because they've got to get other materials in and out besides recyclables. So globally, it's been there's been a real slowdown. We have asked that all materials that are collected here in Nampa that run through Western Recycling, which is our recycling facility, be verified that they are indeed being recycled, and so we are getting those reports on a monthly basis. The problem with the current situation is that when you have an overabundance of materials, that there's no willing buyer. So what used to be, like cardboard used to be, $200 a ton, and it's now under $50 a ton. So by the time we collect everything commingled in the blue carts here in Nampa at your houses, and we take them to the recycling center, and they're separated and then baled and sent to market, that's about $87 a ton. And when you're only getting about $50 a ton at the high for cardboard, you can see that there's a negative impact on pricing. So we presented the council with some options on what it would take to continue it, and we had some good support for that. So I guess my recommendation is to continue the current recycling program. Is that all you need from me?
I think so. Let's pause and see if there are any questions. So council, it is in your packet, the presentation that was provided at our, I'm trying to think, our June 4th meeting. I think that was the date. And the reason this came back, that was a public hearing, but I think that wasn't noticed properly. And so this one has been noticed properly for an official public hearing. And so the information is in your packet. So I guess if there aren't any questions at this time, we'll open it up. We just have, I think, 2 people that would like to speak, and then we'll have you come back after they're done. So thank you so much. So we have 2 people here. We have one person that has signed up to speak in support of this, and it's Lorna Huff. Lorna, are you present? Hi, Lorna. I don't want to speak. We just wanted to be here. Okay, thank you. And then we had one person noted that would like to oppose it, and that is Hubert Osborne.
Thank you, Mayor. Hubert Osborne, 4199 East Switzer Way. The resolution is written, perhaps I'm showing my density, but I really have a hard time figuring it out. In the heading, it says it'll be an increase of 5.9% approximately. If you go down to the 5th whereas, it says we're approving an increase of $1.25 to the base residential rate. The final whereas on that page, again, reiterates the $1.25. If you go to the second page, it says the increased base residential rate will be $22.40 per month. Will this show up? Okay.
Go ahead and, yeah, use your microphone. Thank you.
The, can't see that far. The charge from the city clerk's office is, for mine, is $32.67, one trash cart, one recycling cart. And I wrote down what my bill is with the senior discount of $31.68. This is for 2 months. Okay, $1.25 for 2 months plus $31.68 equals $34.18. If you go with a 5.9% increase, you can see the math there. It equals $33.55. And then on page 2, and I assume this is for 2 months, is $22.40 per month. So 2 months equals $44.80. This is approximately a 40% increase. These are all in the same resolution. I'll take the 5.9% increase, thank you. How about it, legal?
Mayor, could we have that enlarged, please?
Michael, do you mind straightening that, or thank you, Norm, straighten that and then enlarging it?
Thank you.
Thank you. Hubert, point well taken. I'm not sure where these numbers actually came from on this resolution.
Well, Vicki doesn't claim responsibility, so she's off the hook.
Yeah,
She's smiling.
yeah. I wish I could say I know, but I don't know. So can anybody speak to where the numbers came from that came on this resolution?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I know the resolution was drafted by my office. Mr. Sable prepared it. I don't know whether he did the math or whether the numbers were given to him.
Okay.
But I think so we may need to take another look at our resolution, but Hubert, the idea is it's $1.25 to the base residential rate, and not more than that, and we just need to make sure that that's what our resolution says. Okay.
$22.40, that's a 40% increase.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
What we can do is, I mean, if there's nobody here who can speak to these numbers, we'll just have to bring this back at a subsequent meeting to make sure that we're clear about getting the numbers right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else that had planned to speak that did not get signed up on this particular item? Seeing none, I'd like to say one thing first. One thing that we did from the mayor's office today was we sent a communication out through Nextdoor this morning, and that was to help inform our citizens of this public hearing, in that there are some that don't have the opportunity and necessarily see our council agenda. So we wanted to ensure that Nextdoor reaches about 12,000 individuals, and we just wanted to help get the word out. We asked them if they wanted to send any communication to the mayor's office. We only received, 14 emails, and I just wanted to make note that 9 of the emails were in favor of the increase to recycling, 5 were, and I'll say that again, 9 supported, and 5 were against the increase of $1.25. So I just wanted to make that of record, that was the communication that we received back. So if there's no one else that would like to speak or signed up, so Rochelle, would you like to come back? Do you have any further comments? Council, do we have any questions? Okay. Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion?
Mayor, if we could stand by on this until Mr. Hilty can revamp this and clarify and hold off making any decisions. I think that would be better for me to understand what's going on.
Madam Mayor,
Yes?
Councilman Rodriguez and council, I think we can approve the $1.25 increase without having the resolution approved at this point.
Oh, I see, okay.
Counselor? Correct. Legal says yes, so if you want to make that motion,
Well, the problem I have is you want to you want to pass something before a resolution is correct.
well, we have if we have the amount correct of a $1.25 increase, that's it. That's not going to change
Yeah,
unless we
okay.
get a badly written resolution. So,
Could I suggest that for legal counsel, I believe we actually voted on this at the last meeting, and we did approve the $1.25 increase, but because it wasn't noticed as a public hearing, we had to repeat this process. Does the vote, the motion and the vote from the last council meeting stand?
It's a math question. Let me explain that. The statute requires that you have a public hearing anytime you are increasing fees by 5% or more. Now, I'm confused on the math. If the increase is truly 5.9%, then yes, you'd have to have a hearing before you could implement the increased fee. And so what does give me comfort, though, is that I think, and it is important, as Councilman Skog said, following the hearing tonight, then council will need to make a decision. And it seems to me that what is clear is that we're talking about $1.25 per month to the base residential rate. If that's where council's at and what happened before and following the hearing, that is still the intention, we will bring back a resolution that irons all this out.
Okay.
So, Madam Mayor, may I ask legal a question? So what I'm hearing then is for Mr. Osborne, that his rate would not increase maximum $1.25 onto his rate. Is that as an example?
Yeah, I don't know that I can speak specifically to his rate. The fees, there would be a base residential rate, and I guess I'm looking at Michael and Vicky on that. And I would have assumed, reading the resolution, that the base residential rate was the $22.40 per month minus $1.25. That would be what was current. Whether that's true or not, so
Right.
that's what we have to go back and look at, because we'll be adding $1.25 to the base residential rate.
I guess.
Right, it's my understanding that the rate increase is a rate increase of $1.25 per month. It is not, that is the total maximum rate increase. It is a flat fee increase, and it is not based on an individual consumer's actual monthly rate. And I think I saw a nod to that earlier. And so I think we might be better off not putting in what we perceive as a base rate in the resolution, because it may be inaccurate. Because actually, all that we would be voting on to approve is an increase of $1.25 per month per residential consumer for recycling purposes.
So, Madam Mayor, if there is a diversified rate for different consumers, my question again is, no consumer their increase per month would not increase over $1.25 per month.
That is correct.
That's a yes? Okay,
That
thanks.
is correct. Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
thank you. I stand with Councilman Rodriguez on this. I'd prefer to see the resolution, see it in writing, because I'm visual, and I just have to make sure all the ducks are in a row before I'm willing to approve something abstract like that.
Okay.
Thanks. We'll figure.
So that being said, I think, you know what, I don't know if we need to vote on that. Council, do we need to vote on that? Because the recommendation is coming to postpone the vote and to a later date, until the next council meeting when we have the accurate resolution. Can we do that without a vote?
We can. I just want to make sure that following the hearing, we still intend to go down this path, and then we will go back and iron out what needs to be done in terms of the resolution.
Okay. And so, do you want that as a vote? Or is it a nod? I think my understanding is, yes, this is the intent.
Yeah. Then we'll bring back the resolution. You can act on it at that time.
Okay, are we good?
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
thank you. Okay. Rochelle, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. So there'll be no action this evening, but we will come back with a corrected resolution. Thank you.
I'll buy you lunch, Hubert.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to action item number 7.2. This is a public hearing, and this is regarding the vacation of portions of easements within Block 1 and Block 2 at Lava Springs Subdivision Number 1 on the southeast and west side of Lava Springs Loop, west of Southside Boulevard and south of East Locust Lane for Schultz Development, Quattro Properties, Nampa, Inc. Is the applicant with us this evening? Thank you. I think you know the rules, right? State your name and address and who you're with, and, yeah.
Mayor and Council, Matt Schultz, 8421 South 10 Mile in Meridian, here on behalf of Quattro Properties, which purchased Lava Springs from our previous developer about 5-6 years ago. These particular lots are in Phase 1, which was done 10 years ago. Since then, things have progressed nicely. We just did Phase 5, but these have sat vacant. And the reason is we think they were done as a duplex, triplex lots way back when. They were actually built, constructed, utilities are in, pavements in, ready to go, but the market just wasn't ready for them. So what we decided to do to move things forward is to come back to staff and say, hey, what if we take these 28 lots that are a little too narrow and a little too short and recorded as is and turn them into 23 lots. So we essentially moved some lot lines around, made them wider, make them fit detached product now. But when you move those lot lines, you're stuck with some easements that were on some perimeters of some old lots that are now in the middle of some new lots. And so the easements that we're requesting to be vacated do not have any utilities in them. All the utilities that are out there will retain their easement where they lie. These are kind of some blanket perimeter easements that need to go to make these lots buildable. We already have signed off from CenturyLink and from the gas company. Idaho Power's a little bit slow. They're coming shortly, and then we have the city. But it's a cleanup, really. We're making these 28 lots into 23, making them bigger, making them better, and actually going to move forward on these after 10 years of mowing weeds. So it's kind of exciting to finally clean them up and hopefully get houses going on them still this year yet. So with that, I'll stand for any questions and ask for your approval. Thank you.
Are there any questions? If not, we'll move to staff report, and then we'll come back to you with further questions. Norm, thank you.
Yes. The applicant clearly stated the purpose behind this. I don't need to repeat too much of this. It is a housekeeping measure to a large degree and makes sense. You see the highlights of the easements that are being vacated shown on this overhead. And basically, it's as he indicated, it eliminates those that don't need to be there and reduces the number of lots so they can build the homes that they'd like to on these properties. So it all makes sense. There is no calculated area for this at this time of what that area represents, but it is a reduction in the overall area of the easements across this phase of the subdivision. And there have been no persons indicate opposition to these easements being vacated. And engineering staff of the city indicates no opposition and supports the vacation of these easements. No conditions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Norm at this time? Thank you. So this is a public hearing. We do not have anyone signed up to speak other than Matt Schultz in favor of this. Is there anyone that intended to sign up that did not have opportunity to do so? Seeing none. Matt, is there anything else that you would like to say? Okay, so at this time I would stand for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion.
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, I move for the vacation of the portions of easements within Block 1 and Block 2, Lava Springs Subdivision Number 1, as presented with no conditions.
Second.
Council discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Bruner.
Yes.
Hogeboom. Yes. Haverfield.
Yes.
Levi.
Yes.
Skog.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 7.3 on the agenda. This is an action item, and this is a request for a variance on the side yard setback from 5 feet to 3 feet for an existing shed at 123 Shoshone Avenue for Scott Davis. Is the applicant here? Thank you. Feel free to come forward and go ahead and state your name and address again and share with us what you'd like to have accomplished.
A little short here. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate your time. My name's Scott Davis, live at 123 Shoshone Avenue in Nampa. This is part of Old Nampa. 41 years old. I've been born and raised here, seen this city progress. This is part of Old Nampa anyway. I purchased a shed a few months ago, beautiful old hickory shed. Had a guy bring a big truck in, had it dropped off. I didn't know that there was variances and easements. And anyway, there was some sort of a complaint. I don't know if this can be put up there or if you guys have this photo.
We do, but thank you. He'll put it up there for you.
So this is an overhead view of the property. You can see my property's there in the center. I have a very long house, and the very top of the photo is the street, and then the yellow pickup is mine. The driveway goes all the way down the length of the property to the back, and believe it or not, shoehorned in the corner of the back of the darker part of the roof is my garage. Now, the shed that I had delivered, I had him put it right back at the very end of the driveway in the backyard there. And the shed is 16 feet long by 10 feet wide. And I do have several pictures on my phone. I thought I'd be able to present those. It looks like it'd take a lot of time or whatever. But if you guys are wanting to see those pictures of how the property looks, the shed looks, I'm more than willing to show you those. I don't know if those would show up on that or not. But anyway, I have a very, very small backyard. The shed's 16 by 20. In order to actually comply with all the easements, I would actually basically have to turn the shed sideways and place it in the center of my backyard. And I do have dogs and I do have kids, and I would like a little bit of an access to have yard for them. So I think the shed looks great the way it is. I'm not quite sure what the main concern is. There is access right beside the shed of a man gate for any kind of a fire or utility problem. So there is access to the backyard by that gate. And also in the front of the property, there's also a fence on the other side of the house that also has a gate. So there's gates on each side of the property for any sort of access. And I just want permission to leave my shed where it's at.
All right. Council, do you have any questions at this time?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a couple. Hey, Randy?
Mr. Davis, are we looking at the center building there?
Yes, the center long one is my house. And the two properties on each side, they're the shorter, smaller houses, yes. So if you look down the long driveway of the long house, past the yellow pickup in the backyard there at the bottom, at the very end of that driveway is where that shed is, next to the garage.
And you said it was a wood structure?
It is professionally built by Hickory Sheds, so it is a 16 by 20 wood structure shed, yeah.
It's not metal, though?
No, no.
Okay, thank you.
You can see it there.
That, yeah, that's the view from the front of the house. And I'm actually in the process of converting the house to match the shed because I thought the shed was so beautiful. So we are painting the house and matching the trim and everything to have the house, the whole property look presentable.
And so the shed is it behind the back of the house, or is it in line or tandem with the house itself?
It is in the backyard.
Yeah, so is it clear behind the house, or is it alongside the house?
The front of the shed is flush with the back house of the house.
And how much room is there between the house then and the shed as it sits right now?
There is a man gate that's probably 4 feet wide.
Okay, and the shed is not on a permanent foundation then?
No, it is not.
Thank you.
I think you don't, are there?
I
any
just wanted to verify that the picture in our packet was the shed, so Norm confirmed that while Mr. Davis was speaking. Yeah.
And I apologize, the house isn't finished yet, but I've been working really hard.
Oh, well,
I've been doing it
looks good.
myself.
Looks good.
That's
Yeah.
great. Are there further questions? Okay, if not, then we're going to move to the staff report, then the public hearing side, then we'll come back.
Okay, so you see.
Yeah, Norm will go next, and then we'll call you back if we need it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
You have two letters in your packet that we received, one from a neighbor at 127 next door, which I think would be the property to the right facing the house. And you have that letter of the person. I don't know if this is a person that complained. It appears that it may have been, because she's expressing opposition. Then we also have a letter from a Jim and Kathy Hybe that was received recently, indicating that they didn't want to. The shed does not appear to obstruct or negatively affect the neighborhood. In fact, our opinion, it improves the look from the street. Anyway, they're expressing their support for the variance, and I don't know the address and location of that party, but they're expressing their, I assume they're in the neighborhood.
So, Madam Mayor, just a quick question for Norm, if I may. So you are suggesting that the property owner that may have a dissenting view of this is actually to the right, so further away from the shed, not the property that's nearest the shed?
Well, if you look on the map, would be.
Yeah.
So it's the one nearest the shed then?
You can't even-
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the
Furthest.
farthest the shed, yeah.
Furthest.
So they don't even have a sight line, doesn't look like, from that
There's a backyard.
photo.
over there.
Okay, thanks.
Again, what's being asked is a setback on that side yard from 5 foot to 3 foot. And that's pretty much clearly evident from what you see there. You can see the setback from the fence on the neighbor's side. Here where the shed is. We estimated that about 3 foot. And so it's the council's decision to determine, whether there is a situation here that merits the requirement for the variance to be granted. And we've provided you and the staff report the copy of all the information that we've received. I believe the engineering division indicated no concerns over the granting of the variance. And we have not had any complaints other than the one letter. The person on the other side that is most impacted by the fence or by the location of the garage, we have not heard from. And we have, historically, we have granted similar kind of variances in the past, so it would not be in keeping with change of that. But we're not required, it's not a precedent either. This needs to be looked at on its own merits and whether or not it's justified. And certainly the position of the house on the lot and the narrowness of what's available in the backyard, the functionality of the property, does have some bearing, and I guess you need to decide how much. So that's all I would indicate.
Mayor, Norm, I have a question. The 5-foot setback is just standard regardless of height?
Yes.
Okay. The conversation another time on the height and whether there's I know there's restrictions on height. I was just curious what the setbacks are, but it looks like the only obstruction would be maybe the neighbor on the other side who hasn't complained, and it looks like there's tree branches. Are there tree branches actually going over from that other side? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks. That's all.
Okay.
Randy?
Norm, a couple of questions for you.
Yes.
So a building permit wasn't pulled for the shed?
I don't believe so, and it wasn't required to be because of this.
It's not on a permanent
Size
foundation?
of this, I think if it's over 10 by 12, it may require a permit, and I think this is under 10 by 12.
Okay.
Or is it not?
It's not, but does it have to do with whether it's a permanent foundation versus something that is not sitting on a permanent foundation?
Well, I always thought the building code required it if it was larger than 10 by 12, but this is larger than 10 by 12, perhaps a permit should have been requested.
The letter I received said 300 square feet or less did not require,
Okay.
and it's less than 300 square feet.
That was
So-
probably a code enforcement letter that he received.
So my only other question then is, maybe it's a building department question, but they're not here to ask it. The building code requires anything less than 5 feet to be a firewall separation, which this doesn't have. And in the past, I think we've allowed less than 5 feet for storage buildings if they had metal siding, something that's non-combustible. If a fire were to happen inside of the shed and cause damage to the neighbor's property, would we be assuming a liability? That's the question I would ask for Mark to answer.
And I don't know that there's not a firewall in that shed. I don't know that.
Well, maybe the applicant can speak to that, but if it's made out of wood, then I would guess that it's not. But he can speak to that. But Mark, can you address, if we assume will we be assuming a liability if the code requires it to be a firewall that close to the property line?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, I don't think, when we have looked into this issue before on liability associated with code variations, that what we keep finding is that the codes exist for the city to assure quality building. It does happen that often it comes up in the context of having missed something. We have a building inspector who missed something. A home got built out of code, and it's a problem that crops up later, and the question is whether the city is liable for having failed to catch that. So that's the context in which I'm most familiar with this topic, and the answer is no, there is not liability against the city for having missed or failed to enforce a part of the building code. Now, whether it creates a dangerous situation is, I guess, a different question, but from a legal liability standpoint, I don't think there would be liability.
Does the building
against the
code
city.
require a 5-foot setback for a non-fired wall?
Yeah, you can be all the way to the property line if it's a firewall, but it's not. If it's a wood
But
structure,
I think they can go within 3 foot with a firewall.
that's a question for building code, or the building department to address.
Yeah.
But that would be my only concern is, if we are taking on the liability of allowing this to stand and have a fire happen within the building and then cause damage to the neighbor's property, which, that'd be my only concern.
Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and move to our public hearing because it's pretty simple. That currently we don't have, the only person signed up in favor of is Scott Davis, and we don't have anyone signed up opposing this evening. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify on this issue that did not get to sign up? Okay, that said, so I have a question. If it would please the council to leave the public hearing open, defer it to the next meeting, to which time we can come back and answer the question that you have posed, Randy.
Sure.
Is that, it's just a thought, because I guess, council? Thoughts?
Mayor, I guess that, we want them to come back, I guess that is fine. I guess one other question, though, if we are gonna have them come back, my clarification again, 16 by 20, what's the size of this shed? If it's 16 by 20, it's over 300 square feet.
Right.
It is 10 by 16.
Okay.
160, yeah, so it's
I
less
heard-
than.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I heard two different, okay, dimensions, okay, very good. So, Madam Mayor, I guess I would, I mean, to me, we see the pictures, everything looks good to me. I would be personally ready to move and okay this change, so, but that's my opinion.
Mayor,
Yes.
one of the questions that has been raised was whether there's a firewall in there or not, and the only way we can find that out is by asking the applicant. And so is there a possibility that the applicant could come back and answer that question, because that might solve everything?
I don't know what a firewall is. I just purchased the shed.
He needs to come back to.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and come forward, thank you.
By allowing it.
Point of clarification for legal. By calling him back up, are we in the rebuttal stage? Or
No, we're still in public hearing.
Okay,
We're fine to have open discussion and have this back and forth because we're still in an open public hearing.
thank you.
I apologize. I have no idea what that is. I just purchased the shed. All I can say is that the shed is probably 30 feet from the nearest house. So if there was a concern of fire and damage to a neighbor's property, I don't know what would catch on fire back there besides their dry grass. Because they don't water.
Or the fence.
Yeah. But in terms of a fire, I don't know what you guys,
Okay,
I don't know what that is.
Mayor,
thank you.
may I
Yes.
ask Councilman Haverfield, could you clarify or define for us what a firewall is?
Well, firewall is, can be a lot of different things. It can be sheetrock on either side of a 2x4 wall frame, or it could be a block wall, it could be a concrete wall, something that's non-combustible enough or will not conduct a flame for a period of time. So if a fire happens within inside of the structure, as an example, it could easily consume the building, depending on what you're putting in there. Gasoline in a lawnmower can combust. If the fire then spreads to the fence, that then spreads to the house next door, that's my concern about liability. That's why I'm an architect by trade, so I have to deal with these things. If you build a building close enough to a property line that causes the potential for harm to a neighbor, that's really what I'm trying to address here. If you can shift the building over a couple of feet and comply, that's not a big deal, then I'd say that. Our attorney has said that it's not an issue, that we really are assuming a liability here, so I have kind of mixed emotions. And I feel sorry for you that it got placed in a position where now you might, I guess my question to you, can it be shifted?
I mean, I guess if I could hire somebody to come back out, I mean, it's nothing I could push by hand or,
Yeah, so you just have a heister lifted over a couple of feet, would that be a problem for you?
well, it would have to be pushed back into the yard more, which would be less room for the dogs. And then it would have to be moved over back behind the house. So then the view from the front of the house, you would actually see half of the shed. And, it just, I mean, there could be compliance. I'm just saying it cost me a lot of money to have somebody come out there and move that thing.
Yeah.
And I'd have to unload it.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor? Thank you. Scott, if I might. If I understood earlier in your testimony, if you were to move the shed over, isn't that where the gate is? Or is it on the other side?
No, yeah, that is where the gate is.
Would the gate be able to be accessible? If I understood correctly, that the back of the house and the front of the shed are kind of in line, would
Well,
you still be able to access it?
Yeah, see, it's all flush across the very back of the house now. So if the house, or if the shed was moved back and then moved over, then the gate would be turned sideways, I guess. And you'd have to move that shed 5 feet or whatever back, and then the gate would be, so it all just, I'd have to build all sorts of weird fences and stuff to, yeah, and that is the garage area back there behind the house too, so, I mean, it's just all,
Thank you.
sorry.
Mayor, council, I would support granting this. I know I just want to echo what Darrell said, and I have the same concerns. That's why we have codes and all whatnot, but I'm okay with this, so.
Mayor, council, if I could. Scott, like you, I have been looking at sheds, and I don't know of any of them that have a firewall. And I'm looking at all different sizes of sheds. So not about you, it's not by making a mistake, because you did not make a mistake. To me, it looks to me like you're far enough from the next house, which is a lot closer than the new buildings to each house in the new subdivisions.
Yeah.
And so like a 10 feet difference. So
And you can't see it from this picture, and this is probably irrelevant, but right on the other side of that fence, next to the fence, right on top of the fence, is a metal shed. I mean, so, but like we said before, there's no complaint from that neighbor there.
yeah, and so I think I'm in agreement with Councilman on this situation. Yeah.
Okay, Bruce,
Madam Mayor, I move to close public hearing.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. So we're done, and we'll discuss for just a minute, and so thank you so much for answering all of our questions. Appreciate it. Okay, council discussion.
Mayor Kling, Councilman Rodriguez, I'm trying to be formal.
Thank you, sir.
It's not that anybody made a bad choice, it was just placed in the wrong place.
Right, right.
A firewall isn't common, but if you hold it at 5 feet off the property line, it's not a problem. I can't support this only because I'm an architect, and if someone were to ask me my opinion, I would tell them the right thing to do. And in this case, if it could be shifted over 2 feet and a few feet back, it can accomplish what should have been done to begin with, so I won't be supporting the motion if it's in favor of it.
And Mayor, I'll make the motion that the variance be granted from a 5-foot to a 3-foot setback for the shed for this family.
And I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the request. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Mayor, fellow council members, we have these different shed companies, and they are ill-informed about our zoning requirements. And I've had this issue come up many times in different neighborhoods. So if there's any way we can communicate to the shed companies, that would be good on the setbacks.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Good point.
Good point. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, roll call.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
No.
Skog?
No.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Okay, that motion passes. So you've been granted your variance.
You're gonna enjoy it, let the
Just don't start a fire in it, all right?
Yeah, just don't start a fire.
Don't be smoking in there.
So the next public hearing is action item number, it's item number 7.4. This is an action item. This is a variance of 2 off-street parking spaces to 1 space, and the variance of a minimum of a 65-foot lot lane on the split of a 60 by 140 corner lot with 2 existing single-family dwellings for the southeast parcel 2 at 1212 4th Street North for Gorilla Capital. And is the applicant here? Not seeing the applicant. Staff report.
This is a corner lot that has 2 dwellings that has never been split. And it was owned by one party, and now the applicant, Gorilla Capital ID SP LLC, is the buyer for this parcel. Or, I'm not sure whether they're buying, anyway, they want to split it and sell off one of the parcels, the one that's in question of the need for the variance. And that's the one on the southeast location as shown here. And on the aerial view, you see the parcel, it's narrow parcel to the north on this drawing. The parcel, the original parcel is 60 by 140. It actually has 10 feet of the lot to the north. The original parcels were 50 by 140. This parcel is 60 by 140, and they want to split it. For the lot next to the alley would end up being less than 65 feet on the depth side for that lot. And the actual dimensions would be 62.64 by 60 for that piece. And the code for that corner lot split to be official required 65, so it's a reduction of whatever that amount is. I think I put it in here somewhere. Anyways, from 65 to 62.64. And in addition to that, I guess it's best to look at the applicant's letter that was attached to this, or at least, yeah. So there's 2 requests stated in his letter. The off-street parking spot, instead of 2, he wants 1. He says, we're asking for variance to allow us to only have one off-street parking spot instead of two. There's both a practical difficulty and a hardship that are leading to this request. There is an existing curb cut in the front of the house with a concrete parking pad for a single car that was installed at the time the house was constructed. Adding a second pad would remove established trees and the majority of the usable yard area for the occupants, detracting from the aesthetic appeal of the neighborhood. Anyway, the industry hardship, he states, is that it would be financial. It would cost $2,000 to remove the street, and on top of pouring a pad for the second off-street parking spot, and there are already sidewalks and ample on-street parking for all of the homes in the neighborhood on the street, and he's asking for the variance for that parking. The other variance, again, is for the 65 foot of width. He calls it width, it's actually depth. He said Skinner Land Surveying, who completed the survey, set up the pins, and the dimensions of the pins were dropped by the surveyor. It leaves 62.64 feet of frontage, and that doesn't meet the 65. So it's not changing the circumstances of the lot of the two dwellings that exist there. It's just allowing the split in a reduced lot size, going to the 62.4 versus the 65, and the elimination of the requirement for the second off-street parking, which doesn't exist now for that house. So that's the request of the applicant. Any questions?
Okay, so seeing none, Norm, just stay put there. This is a public hearing, but at this time, we don't have anyone signed up to speak on behalf of or against this particular item. Is there anyone here that had intended to sign up that did not have the opportunity to do so? So seeing none, the applicant is not here, and no one has signed up, and I think at that, unless we have questions for Norm, we could stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So
But-
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
I was going to mention one other thing
Sorry, okay.
before you
Oh.
close that.
sorry. Well, as staff, feel free to report.
There needs to be utility easements dedicated as required for the relocation of water, sewer, and pressure irrigation and other utilities. And the code requires that when you split a lot, there may need to be some actual easements dedicated when if their utilities are at a location where they can't be relocated, because typically they come across the alley. There needs to be an easement for that other house on the corner that dedicates that easement for access to their lines that probably cross over the other lot, because they typically go to the alley. And engineering was pointing out that needs to be dedicated as a part of this.
May I ask staff a question? I know we closed public hearing. On something like this, there would be new hookup fees for the second unit, right? And impact fees collected?
If it was a lot that was being split and there was a new home being put on it,
Yeah.
yes. But in this case, where it's an existing dwelling and they both have their
Yeah.
hookups now, there probably wouldn't be anything.
Okay.
And Randy?
So my question was, are there separate meters for these two homes?
There would need to be, yes.
There would need to be,
If-
but there is not now?
But I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
That should be stated if it were allowed, yes, that it needed to be separated.
Because normally they do come off the alley. So my question for you then is, by allowing the split to a non-conforming lot size, is that setting a precedent for other potential lot splits in this urban-type area?
Well, to tell you the truth, there have been variances like this granted on these corner lots previously.
Okay.
So I know it's happened, and we don't track them historically and say that there's a precedent, no.
So is the request, Norm, for one off-street parking space for this house next to the alley?
For the smaller lot. Yeah.
Okay. Is it accessible off of 4th Street North, or is it off of the alley itself?
I believe it's off the 4th Street north side, yes. The parking space that exists is right on the front of 4th Street.
Yeah, because I can see the access to the other home. There's a driveway access into what appears underneath the foliage of the trees to a garage or a carport.
That's the house.
Oh, so you can't see it underneath the tree then?
There's the driveway, the small home, and one pad sitting there.
Okay. So if a motion's made, it needs to include the fact that there needs to be an easement drawn across the smaller lot to allow a water line or sewer line access.
And you could even go as far as say if there is not a separate water meter there, it needs to be separated
Right,
in order for that to occur.
thank you.
Is there further discussion amongst council? Okay. So, what do we want to do with this? Rick?
Got it?
Oh yeah, we did close public hearing, that's right, and then we kept talking. Okay, yeah.
This
Sorry,
is
that
the
threw me off.
council discussion side, yes.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve a variance of 2 off-street parking spaces to 1 space and a variance of the minimum 65-foot lot length of the split of 60 foot times 140 feet corner lot with 2 existing single-family dwelling units for the SE parcel 2 at 1212 4th Street North for Gorilla Capital with the
addition
easement
of-
and the
Recommended
recommended conditions
conditions of approval.
of approval.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Randy?
Can you be clear on your motion as far as the additive easement across the one lot to provide utilities to the other? Is what-
That can be amended as stated by
Okay, so
Councilman
that
Haverford.
was the intent of your motion.
The easement. And then on the building would follow up on the water meter. That's not,
Separate water meter.
yeah,
Separate
separate water utility, yeah.
Okay.
And the second is to that motion?
I did second that, yes,
Okay.
with the amended.
Right. Okay, any further discussion? And Nate, do you think you have this? We'll go back and listen to it and ensure that the recommended conditions are met in the motion. Okay. Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Okay, item 7.5 has been removed and postponed to a later date, so that concludes our public hearings for this evening. And with that, we are going to move to let's see, we were back to the section that actually was mayor and council comments at the beginning of the agenda, and I just had a couple of brief comments. Sandy?
Mayor, excuse me, may I make a personal request? We have 2 young ladies from the Mayor Teen Council,
Right.
and one of them has an appointment.
Okay.
And may I, my request would be to move their
them up.
report first, please.
That would be fine. So we will move on to staff communications and 3.1, the mayor's teen council. So this is Morgan and Kimberly, and Morgan and Kimberly are the chair and co-chair of our mayor's teen council, and we have greatly appreciated their leadership over this last year of our mayor's teen council. And they will both be seniors this coming year and will be continuing in their role as leaders of our mayor's teen council. And so it's great to have you guys tonight. Thank you for being here.
Okay, so 2 weeks ago, Kimberly and I had the pleasure of attending the Association of Idaho Cities Conference with Councilwoman Sandy Levi as our chaperone. And we came here tonight just to present to you what we learned and discussed at that conference.
So our first night of our council, we had the opportunity to do icebreakers and welcoming activities with our fellow youth delegates. Now, Boise Escape brought over a van that we were able to participate in, and we are proud to say that we escaped in under 10 minutes. Our second day of our conference, we were able to start off our morning at Bodies in Motion. At Bodies in Motion, we were able to complete ropes course, American Ninja Warrior course, and team bonding activities to help us learn how to have teamwork in any situation.
After going to Bodies in Motion, we went to the conference center and attended a workshop called Bringing Out the Best in Ourselves and Others. We learned about how it's our natural instinct to make assumptions about people and how we should strive to not do so because that can hinder creating lasting relationships, whether they're work relationships or personal relationships.
Following that conference, we were able to attend the walk audit around downtown Boise. On this walk audit, we were able to walk along the sidewalks and determine whether or not the sidewalks and roadways were deemed safe for pedestrians and bikers to follow along. We were also able to pick up some tips to bring back to our fellow cities in Nampa and Idaho. That night, concluding our conferences, we were able to witness the talent show put on by our youth delegates. At this talent show, we saw numerous performances of singing and dancing, as well as a song performed by Mayor of Caldwell and County Commissioner Tom Dale.
On our third day of the conference, we did a service project through the Boise Urban Garden School. We helped clean up a couple of elementary school garden areas within the city of Boise. We then attended a luncheon where the effects of marijuana legalization in cities was discussed.
Following that luncheon, we had the opportunity to attend the workshop, Successfully Working with Different Personalities. At the beginning of this workshop, we were able to take a personality test. This personality test split us into 4 different groups, and in these groups, we were able to learn how to effectively lead with our certain personality trait, as well as work with other leaders with opposing personality traits. Following those conferences, we were able to attend the Association of Idaho Cities Awards Banquet. We ate a wonderful dinner and got to acknowledge the wonderful cities across Idaho and the work they have been doing.
On the last day of our conference, we attended a workshop about making a public service announcement. We worked with the Idaho Transportation Department to create about 30-second public service announcements about different topics such as distracted driving or impaired driving.
Concluding our conference, we were able to head over to Sovereign Marketing Company and take a private tour of their facility and learn how they are able to work and help clients achieve what they need.
And these are just some other pictures from our conference. After the conference concluded, we ate lunch at Chick-fil-A and were able to speak to some of our country's servicemen there. So are there any questions or comments about?
Mayor, let me just say that's terrific, ladies. One question, did Councilwoman Levi was your chaperone?
Yes, she was.
Do you have any photos of her competing in a Ninja Warrior competition at all?
She did not participate in the Ninja Warrior course. She was our photographer, our personal photographer.
Mayor Clegg, if I could. You know, I saw these 2 young ladies over at the conference, and I'll tell you what, they are true ambassadors to Nampa. They held themselves in highest regard and represented us well. So I just want to say thank you. You did a good job. And of course, Councilman Levi is right there with you, but I don't think you really need chaperones. So
thank you.
I think she did more than you guys, right? Well, thank you for what all you have done at the conference, representing the city of Nampa.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. I would just want to extend to Kimberly and to Morgan, and also to let our council and our mayor know, I have since received several reports from not only AIC, the people that were in charge of the youth, and several other of the advisors, and they had such high things to say about our 2 young ladies, how they conducted themselves and how professional they are. So I just want to thank you. And thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be with you.
Any further questions?
Just thanks for representing us well. your presentation very well. You could tell you're very professional, and obviously it was clear there based on Councilwoman Levi's feedback. So keep up your civic engagement for the good of our city. Thank you.
I just want to say, Sandy, thank you, Councilwoman Levi, excuse me. Thank you for your willingness to serve as a chaperone. And it isn't that you guys needed it, but it is a requirement. And thank you for stepping up and doing so. It's greatly appreciated. And Kimberly and Morgan, thank you for your leadership. I'm glad you got to go, and you guys are doing a great job. So we're excited about Mayor's Teen Council for next year because we're going to be revamping the program. We're going to be doing a 2-year, actually a 3-year program. 2 years that are totally different, and then the 3rd year will be, as they are leading this year, the seniors will be leading the class of the sophomores and juniors. So we look forward to getting that kicked off, and thank you for your leadership in that program.
Thank you.
Great job. Okay, just a real quick on the mayor's comments. I just wanted to mention just the FYI that I did attend a conference in Las Vegas last week. It was a 2-day conference called Accelerator for America. It was a small group of mayors from across the United States. I was invited by the LA Mayor, Mayor Garcetti, to join this group, and the discussion was about infrastructure in the nation and how to improve that, and very specific discussions on our opportunity zones and what we can do to maximize the one opportunity zone that Nampa has. And I came back with some great information, and again, that's at no cost to the city. The other thing that I've been invited to attend is another mayor's conference that has 105 mayors attending with the Kauffman Foundation out of Kansas City. That focuses on building entrepreneurs in your local community, and that is next week in Kansas City for 2 days. And again, that is no cost to the city, and it's mayors coming together to brainstorm and discuss how we can grow the entrepreneurial environment in our community. Lastly, 2 weeks ago at our last council meeting, we decided to defer the vote on the water tower. And we did that so that we could actually get some feedback from our local citizens. And I appreciate our communications manager, Amy Bowman, for putting together a survey that we put out on Facebook and Nextdoor. We've had, I can't remember, 415 responses at this time, and at this time, we have 54% in support of demolishing the water tower, and the demolish is very clearly outlined on there, and that is to rebuild the other one in its location, to a 29% to abandon in place and 15% to rehabilitate. So I guess the question that Amy asked of me, and I would ask of the council, how much longer would we like to keep that survey open? I was thinking possibly, maybe for the next week, send a reminder on it, but I just wanted to update the council on where we were on the responses. And do you have any further comments on that? Seeing none, we'll just...
I think it's sufficient feedback. If you think another week's good, it seems like we have to make that decision. I was absent. I watched part of the meeting on live stream from South Carolina, but I saw that you're getting feedback. So I don't want to just put next council meeting, we'll make a decision. I'm okay if you want to leave it up 2 weeks, just as long as we get to a decision and move on, so
Okay.
that they're not waiting on us. So.
Does that work if we have a decision in 2 weeks on that? Okay.
All right.
So we'll bring the final report on feedback, and we'll have a vote in 2 weeks. We'll put that on the council agenda. So thank you. Okay, so moving on, I believe our next agenda
Madam Mayor?
I'm sorry?
Do we have council comments still?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Bruce, thank you for keeping me in line.
All right.
Thank you.
Fellow council members, adding the proclamation the mayor, that the mayor's doing now, and the mayor and council comments is adding time to our meetings early on, and that makes the meetings longer. But that being said, we should probably move the public hearings back to where they used to be at 7:30 instead of 7, because we don't even get to staff comments sometimes by then. And we discussed that at one point, so I just throw that out. That would be, I'd like to go back to that.
Madam Mayor, Councilman Scott, there's also just brief discussion, I believe, as far as even possibly starting our meetings at 6 rather than 6:30. I guess I would be in favor of that with the length of the meetings that we've been having, that if we did start, at least consider that possibility of a half-hour start time to be at 6 o'clock.
And at that, would we then consider leaving our public hearings at
Right.
7, but we could get through most of our business before the public hearings? And living it at 7?
Yes.
Mhm.
And is that legal? Is that something that can be voted on next council meeting, or we need to?
Yeah, it can. Yeah, we'll just have to make sure with the city clerk that we get that noticed out right, because if we change the time of the regular meeting, we'll have to make sure that there's appropriate notice for it. Certainly, we can do that.
That is an ordinance, actually. Our council meeting and the time is an ordinance. So if we were to look to have the ordinance changed and be ready to vote on that at our next meeting, and then we would notice it accordingly with the first meeting that it took effect to be at that later date based on the noticing, would that be?
Yeah, I was unaware that it was an ordinance, but we would want to bring forward a modifying ordinance, and then and there is a process that the clerk's office goes through to notice those regular meetings. So they're not, regular meetings are not noticed twice a month. They're noticed once a year. And so we'll have to go back and amend that as well.
Perfect. Does that sound like the pulse of the council to go ahead and move our meeting to 6?
I'd be willing to discuss it. As long as PM is attached to it, we're good. Not AM. Although 6 AM, that might be interesting too, but no, 6 PM.
I'd be in favor of that, actually.
I would too.
Old guys are all for that.
Yeah.
Donuts and coffee.
There you go, right on.
And I guess if for some reason we got done before 7, we could take a break before we stepped into public hearings. That would be a wishful thought. But, okay.
It's happened.
Okay. So with that, are there any other further council comments? And I apologize that I moved on. Are there any reports from any meetings that you've attended or any updates that the council would like to provide?
Actually, Mayor, Mayor and Council, I did attend the Horse Park Regional Stallion, oh my gosh, 300 horses and beautiful riders and beautiful, I tell you what, I was impressed. The Idaho Center is doing so much better under this new Spectra and Tim Sabona, and their cooperation is just amazing. I got to give them a hand on. That's a kudo for them. That's great, and had a lot of people there from all over the country, and they do want to return back to Nampa. So kudos to them. That was a great event. I couldn't get on one of the horses, so I just smiled at them. But it's beautiful. We all should attend that one of these days, because, oh my gosh, it's just awesome. That's all I had to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further?
I was chosen at the last council meeting to be the map person, so just to report that I met with Mountain West Bank this week and got some documentation signed so that deposits can be made. So I'll just know not to be absent at a city council meeting again.
Is that an acknowledgement of your
No,
acceptance?
yes, I accepted it, yes. It was good. Yeah, so I already signed some paperwork for that. Just also heavy hearts as we think about our neighbors in Meridian and Boise. I know that they had a vigil tonight at 6 at City Hall. I know everyone's aware of the tragedy that occurred there, and the Meridian officer who was shot yesterday. It's just been a hard weekend. So just express solidarity to our neighbors, and just praying for the victims and hoping that there's no more deceased. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, on that note, we will move on to our staff communications, and the last staff communication that we have is a staff report with Michael Fuse.
Mayor and Council, just a quick report. The good news, chip sealing is done, fog sealing is down, painting started today. So they're out there doing that, and so hopefully those concerns are completed. Other than that, Nampa is under construction virtually everywhere, so we'll get at least the chip seal out of the way. The other thing, just kind of a heads up, we are finishing our consultant negotiation with Brown and Caldwell and sub-consultants of CTA Architects and DC Engineering for that Phase 1, Phase 3 preliminary design work. At the end of the day, it'll be about 30% design effort complete. We're going through the scoping. Probably a big thing that will be part of the discussion over the next year will be the delivery method. How are we going to deliver all of this work? And that includes we will be sharing with the council, and it'll be a council decision on whether we build it like we have in the past, where it's design, bid, build, or we use an alternative delivery method such as construction manager at risk or design build or some other functions. There's a lot of things to consider. It is a Herculean task. We've got about 12 meetings with an oversight committee and about 50 staff workshops in 18 months, so there's a lot of work to be done. And there are also jumping off points as we get through there, should we choose a different delivery method, because then we need to package the information to the various vendors. Currently, the preliminary estimate's in the neighborhood of $5 million. So that will be before you. The tricky part with that is, since this was unknown at the beginning of the budget for fiscal year 18, it's not in the current budget. So we know that there's a budget amendment coming. We would anticipate that we will be before you next council meeting with this scope and fee, with the understanding that that will also require a budget amendment in fiscal year 18, and then we have funding in the proposed fiscal year 19 budget, just so everybody's aware of where that's shaking out. With that, is there any questions, anything else we got?
Mayor Kling, just two. Last week, there was a water line fracture on 2nd Street North,
Okay.
just to the east of 11th Avenue. I was just wondering what you could tell us about that, what caused it, and if there were any ramifications, if it was caused by road work being done on 11th Avenue North.
Mayor and council, is something I have to do some research. I don't have any information at this time. We did do some shutdowns, and we continue to do some shutdowns for some valve replacements up in that general area, but if it was a break, I need to do some investigation.
My understanding, it was a break. It was right in front of a business that I was going to visit, and they said that it had been broken, and the repair work was underway, but it was earlier in the morning, so it had been a couple hours that it was causing some movement of soil, obviously up and down 11th Avenue North, which brought up my second question, which is, has there been anything come back out of I-Crimp on the Garrity water line break, as far as the coverage, cause, whatever, any report on that?
There hasn't been a report on it. What I recall seeing from the clerk's office is that those types of things, roads, are not covered.
The road improvement.
The road improvements, infrastructure, those types of things.
So the forensics, as far as on the break in the line, is there anything further that's been found on what caused it?
Mayor, Councilwoman Howardfield, no. You lose 1 million gallons of water, virtually everything that might be evidence is gone.
So I guess the cost associated with it, are we to bear that cost, since I-Crimp's not going to cover it?
Mayor, Councilman, yeah, that's correct. It's about it's under $230,000 is the last number I recall seeing, total, all in.
It's about half of what it was reported to be then.
Yeah, it's been, that's the summary that I received last week.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, just one question. I've been out of town for a week, so I may be just in the dark. But being close to NNU there, 12th Street, I was just surprised. I knew there was things going to happen, but all kinds of things. I know that's Idaho Transportation Department. I was just getting some questions, and I don't have any answers regarding exactly. There's all those medium strips. Their turn lanes are changing. Are they keeping in communication with you at all? So when we have Nampa City residents asking questions, at least what's actually going to be the final product there?
Yeah, there was public involvement associated with the project.
Right.
We've shared the islands. There will be islands and limited left turn movements. That's been out through the public process, and we've been communicating with them. ITD's been doing most, it's their work. Nampa is involved with the PED crossings, as you know, and so the PED crossings are, for the most part, complete. Now the islands are going in. And then also, there will be a resurfacing of all of 12th Avenue from Deer Flat into what they finish downtown, starting, I believe it's going to be completed in the month of August. So that information will be coming forward as well.
So that'll be coming out to the...
Yeah, they want to finish the islands, and then they're going to come in and resurface again.
Okay, thanks. And the main reason, from my understanding from the previous months when looking at this project, it was mainly for safety reasons. Is that your
That's
understanding?
correct. Yeah, it's left turn movements. There's been a lot of accidents throughout that corridor.
Thanks.
Mayor, kind of following up on Councilman Haverfield's line of questioning about the Garrity water situation. sounds pretty bleak that there'd be any sort of money coming back, though it's possible that there's a deficiency in the project. There's no way to adjudicate at least culpability for the sake of, I don't know if there's a process if, we have to award bids to the lowest bidder for a lot of different projects, so long as they're certified and they meet certain criteria and qualifications. Is there some sort of feedback loop if, we find reason to believe that someone was deficient in their work, to at least report that so that we might not be obligated to have to award future projects to that same bidder?
Mayor, Council, in my experience, it's pretty hard to prove that. Nampa actually has done that in the past to a contractor. It's generally difficult to prove that. Certainly something we can look at as we go forward, but generally we haven't had a whole lot of problems. Things happen in construction. Likely this was it could have been an installation error, it could be a manufacturer error of the pipe, and it could have been settlement of something else. There's a lot of potential things. We get water main breaks in the neighborhood of 1.5 a month, I believe, in that neighborhood. And so that's an area we're trying to get our arms around exactly what that failure rate is, if there's a more or less. That's why we have in our asset management plan to replace water mains, irrigation mains. What I can report is that I track the irrigation. Probably the biggest risk we have is in irrigation. We see, because it's dry all winter, people hit it, nobody knows, no water comes out, turn the water on in the spring, water everywhere. But we have had a better job of marking. We have done a much better job. I got to give the water guys a lot of credit. We're seeing a lot fewer breaks. Some of it's how we operate the system. Over the past, it used to be I'd get 100 service calls a week. And you've seen some of these reports, we're getting those down in the teens. So that's quite a bit. A lot of it's out there just communicating and letting people know what's in the ground. I mean, the 811 thing that we've seen at AIC and other areas, that's a pretty big thing as well. People notify, not for contractors, not to hit them.
Any further questions for Michael? I will follow up to say that regarding communication on the roads updates, so Amy is posting those on both Nextdoor and Facebook, and I think they've done a good job, ITD and Highway District and the city, in communicating what those are, and so we'll just make sure that they're there, but we're trying to do that. And just a reminder, and I should have said this during my report, that the weekly update that we have been providing to council, we're moving to twice a month instead of every week because it's pretty time consuming. And it'll be off week from council because you have big packets on council week. So the opposite week, you'll have a report, and that report usually includes these traffic updates. So we'll try to keep you guys apprised of the updates that are taking place. Michael, thank you very much. I appreciate it. So recognizing we only have one unfinished business item, we're going to do that real quickly. Then we're going to move to new business and our report from Valley Regional Transit. So item number 4.1 is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to IL at 9546 Cherry Lane for Daniel French. And this is requested. It was the public hearing was on 5/21, and there is a request to pass this under suspension of rules. Thank you for reading it.
An ordinance determining that certain lands commonly known as 9546 Cherry Lane, Nampa, Idaho, comprising approximately 3.8 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the city limits of the city of Nampa, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said lands should be annexed into the city of Nampa, Idaho as part of the IL zone, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the city of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Nampa, Idaho, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, providing an effective date, and directing the clerk of the city of Nampa to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63215.
There be a motion to approve this under suspension of rules?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Vogelboom?
Yes.
And as noted on our agenda, we do have a number of pending ordinances that are postponed due to lack of supporting documentation, and those are so noted just for public knowledge. Okay, moving on to item number 5, which is our new business. 5.1 is the Valley Regional Transit presentation for FY19. Rhonda, thank you for being here. We appreciate you and your team.
Thank you. I'm going to hand out our PowerPoint presentation.
And I'll state just for clarity with the council while Rhonda's passing this out, this is noted as an action item. We are not required to take action tonight. If the council chooses to take action, then we can, and it would allow VRT to go ahead and budget, but it is not required that we vote on this measure, so we can discuss that at the end of this presentation.
Thank you. Can you bring up my PowerPoint? So while they're doing that, Rhonda Gelbert, I'm the Development Director for Valley Regional Transit. My address is 700 Northeast 2nd Street, Meridian. So I'm going to... So I'm here tonight, So I'm here tonight to talk about the Canyon County services, specifically the Nampa services as it pertains to Nampa. So the goals are the strategic initiatives of VRT. We do want to demonstrate, and we will demonstrate tonight, responsible stewardship of public funds, building community partnerships, and then also building capacity within our region. So the Canyon County services, what we're looking at right now is that in April, a letter was sent to the city of Nampa requesting $372,000. After reviewing all the budgets, we are actually requesting $442,506. So I want to talk a little bit about our services. So we do provide services within Canyon counties. And so Valley Ride is the service that VRT offers within 8 and Canyon counties. We have our fixed route, which are our local services. We have our inter-county, which are our commuter, and then also our access service, which is paratransit. And those are the buses that actually operate within your area. So we're not just a fixed route system or offer paratransit. We also do a lot of specialized transportation, and we work with the community. So we actually provide funding to Metro, which has had a lot of ridership within this area. They typically provide service to seniors or disabled, and so they provide rides for disabled outside of our area. Access services can only be provided within 3/4 miles of a fixed route. So if there's a disabled person who lives outside of there or wants to go to a doctor that is outside of our fixed route area, Metro is able to provide that. And then they do provide rides for seniors. We also have a volunteer driver program that we've pulled together, and so that is available 24/7, and we facilitate the scheduling of that. Someone calls in, needs a ride, and then we find a volunteer to do that. Canyon Rides is our commuter ride van pool program. We've been working with Enterprise on that. To date, there have been no van pool programs pulled together, or vans, and we're still working through to see what we can do to get that working. Treasure Valley Transit also offers service within this area, but they only offer it in the rural areas, and it's non-emergency medical transportation. They do not operate within the city limits of Nampa. So these are the fixed routes. There are 3 of them, 51, 52, and 53. There are 4 inter-county routes. There's actually 6, but 2 of them just pass through Nampa and do not stop. And then there's also the access, which is the paratransit service. So these are the current Valley Ride routes that you see that are within your area. We've shown the total of the routes for the local routes, and then only a portion for the inter-county routes, because those typically will end either at Boise Town Square Mall or Main Street Station or Boise State. So those are the routes. We had a major route change here happened, I believe, in January of last year. And what we did is we consolidated a lot of routes that were going up and down the boulevard to use our funding more efficiently. So these are the ridership numbers. We were able to purchase fare boxes, and so that is one of the complaints that we have received and requests from the city council. So what we were able to do is that October through about mid-January was prior when we had multiple routes running up and down the boulevard. And so prior to that, for all of the inter-county routes, we had a total of all 6 routes was 28,000, but the ones that served Nampa was 22. And so in February, with the change that we just put together, our ridership actually has gone up, as you can see, on average per month. It went from 7,000 to just over 7,300. And then also the ones that served Nampa, we were at about 5,600, and now we're at 6,000. So the ridership on the local routes that serve Nampa, the total was 19,000 prior to the change, and then the ridership is 18,500. So there was a slight drop. That could be due to some people learning the routes and figuring them out. So these are the, what we've done is we don't have hardware or software that tells us how people are getting on and off sites. So what we've done as a request that the board would like to know route level ridership, we've been doing quite a bit of sampling. So as you can see at the CWI right there, there's quite a bit of people getting on and getting off at that area. So, and then the other areas that were, so the high usage stop was the CWI main campus, North Side and 6th, Caldwell and Canyon, Karcher Mall, and 12th and Southdale. So is there any questions?
I have a question for you. Back on your Valley Ride ridership, and you had mentioned, used a term, and it was I want to say on the February, let's say the May 2018 through the February through May, you said serving Nampa, the 6,053 serving Nampa. And so I wanted you to go back and clarify, when you're saying serving Nampa, you've got all routes, right? So let's go back. So you had the 7,361 average per month. And then when you said the 6,053 was serving Nampa, could you just clarify that? Because the other route does serve Nampa, but it's not just inside Nampa. Could you just explain what you meant by that?
So with the inter-county routes, we have the 4 routes that will pick up people within your area. The other 2 routes do not typically pick up people within the Nampa city limits. And so when you look at the total, the 28,000 and the 7,000, that is for all 6 routes. The 4 routes that we are able to pick up and drop people off within the Nampa city limits is 22,315.
Okay, okay.
Right.
Thank you for that clarity, and the same was on the next one. Okay, it was the 6 routes versus 4.
So, Madam Mayor, I do have a question. Rhonda, thank you for this report. Of those 6,053 average per month, how many individuals make up that 6,053 riders?
I do have a slide that will show the type of ridership, but I can't tell you if
You don't know how many individuals? Because I take it there's repeat
There
riders
is
over
repeat
and over,
business,
right?
correct.
I've been asking for that for 2 years now and have not seen that, so I'd be very interested in that.
I do not know if that information
Okay.
is even available to obtain. So we do have, it's like, you can't ask who's using the parks every single day or walking in your doors. You know that you have so many people coming in, you don't know how many are repeat. We do know from past sales, if a person buys a 31-day pass, we can tell you the length that they have that, but I can't tell you if somebody buys a single universal ticket each and every day, that is the same person.
Okay, so legal, maybe this is a legal question. So legal, I take it somebody can deny giving their identity, I guess, if they enter a Valley Ride vehicle. Is that correct?
Well, I suspect they're not asking or tracking, that they don't have the data.
Is there a legal challenge with asking it, I guess is my question. I'm asking legal here.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to research that.
Because I'm, the old school, and I suggested this over a year ago, but there is such a thing as paper and tablet and writing down a name, the driver writing down a name of somebody coming on, unless I realize they can deny giving a name if they so desire. Anyway, just a question I would like for someone to answer for me, since I've been asking that repeatedly.
Okay.
Thanks.
One thing we might be able to ask would be what percentage of those riders use a 30-day pass versus individual
find that
ridership? That might be helpful.
Could we go to the, so this is the ridership by type that we're currently, for the intercounty or the commuter and the fixed route. So we can pull ridership by employers, and they can probably determine how many of their employees are doing that. Regular is basically someone who buys a pass, gets on, is not a student or a senior. As you can see, there's quite a few students that use the intercounty routes. Discount or free are seniors and disabled people. And then short fare is right now our fare is $1. If you get on and you only have 75 cents, we're not going to kick you off. We're just going to mark you as a short fare. So this does give you quite a bit of ridership by type. It is the regular, the only one that we could probably tell you the number of actual people using that could possibly be the employers, and if they agreed to give us that information. With the students and the seniors and disabled, it would basically, like you said, taking a name down and marking, and that is something that we would have to take under consideration.
No, it's labor intensive.
Yes.
I think for a 3-month period of time or whatever, I'm just suggesting that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Can you go to the next slide? Oh, and keep in mind that that ridership is based upon the routes that serve Nampa. It's not the total ridership of the intercounties or the local routes. So for FY19, we don't really have any proposed changes that are happening in FY19. What we are trying to do is we've had some on-time performance issues, and what we're doing, especially with all the construction that's going on, is figuring out the actual travel times that it is taking, and those are the changes that we are making to our schedules. So we hope to improve our on-time performance substantially with that. And those are slated to probably happen, I believe, in January. Is that correct? Or December. So what does public transportation bring, to a community? It does help with large companies. Amazon, if you're reading the papers and believe what they say, that is one of the things that they do ask, is about public transportation. Small business needs, it helps bring people to your business and also your employees. And public transportation can be easily scaled to meet the needs of the community based upon funding. So I kind of wanted to go back through the Nampa infrastructure projects that have been going on. So I believe that Nampa has up to 9 projects that are ongoing. We received requests for reimbursement in December of 2017, and we paid the city of Nampa $1.6 million on January 23rd. That is the last request that we have received from the city of Nampa. So if there's other things that are ongoing, we have not received any of those requests for reimbursement. The types of projects that we're able to help with is pedestrian, fixing of sidewalks, adding hawk signals. It has to be within a half mile of a fixed route. And then also a lot of bike paths. I believe that Nampa has one that is going on, and that has to be within 3 miles of a fixed route. The funding is typically 80-20, 80% federal dollars, 20% local. And so, to my knowledge, the city of Nampa has received or been programmed about approximately $3 million for infrastructure projects. So, is there any questions on those infrastructure projects? They will need to be included. The FTA is requiring all of the transit agencies to come up with a transit asset management plan. So anything that is over 50,000 will be will be included in that asset management plan. It will have a useful life. Typically, infrastructure is 30 to 40 years, or based upon engineering estimates. So we will be coming in and working with your staff to score those assets to make sure that they're maintained, and that when they become deteriorated and they score low, that then they are brought forward as needing to be upgraded. So, this is showing the funding shortfall. What was, so for our fixed route, our revenues, as you can see, are less than our expenses and our original estimate. The same with the inter-counties and the access service. So our total overall operational shortfall is $119,000. And so Nampa's portion of that is the $70,000 that we are requesting. We've been doing these presentations throughout, and we've been getting fairly good response with them. And most communities are agreeing to the increase. Next slide. The other thing that we also determined is that our regional administration, there is a shortfall there. At this time, we are not asking for any of the communities to participate in this. We are going to figure this one out. And so that shortfall is $149,000. But I do have to say that next year, or FY20, we will be probably looking and asking for that funding as well. So as I stated, that we originally requested $372,000, and we are requesting $442,000. One of the reasons for the shortfall is driver wages. Our driver wages averaged $10 to $12 per hour. What we found is that we had high turnover in that, and we could not find people who wanted to apply for those jobs. So what we have done is we have increased the average hourly rate to just over $13 to help keep people and maintain them. Our general manager for the Nampa operations wanted to come today, but she was unable to come because she was actually dispatching. The operations manager was actually out driving. So we have this as a constant issue.
Would you share what the Ada County wage was, just for the comparison? I think that's important to know.
So the average Ada County wage is $18.86 an hour. So they also, Ada County has a much stronger union, and they work on their benefits. And also, part of the shortfall, we are also increasing the benefits for the drivers and the employees, and we're cutting, we're not cutting, we're adding to their benefits and cutting their costs for that as well. So I realize that we haven't been in front of you as much as possible. It is now my new job to be here more often, so you will be seeing a lot more of me. So I'm here, and I will be here in August to answer any questions that you have on your budget vote. We are working on performance metrics, and we are getting a lot better at it. So you will see performance metrics again in October, and in January, there's actually a mistake on your printed copy. We'll actually be showing you our year end. So not only will it have ridership, but it will also have financial performance metrics as well. And then we'll also provide you with the first quarter FY19. And then also we hope to bring you the FY20 estimated assessment. And so then every quarter we will be back in front of you to provide performance metrics and measures. Thanks.
Rhonda, you've done a great job.
Thank you.
I have to say to council, I appreciated sitting down with Rhonda. I shared with her some of the challenges that I had heard from the council and told her we needed really good information, and I greatly appreciate your communication.
Madam Mayor, I have a few questions. How accurate are your ridership stats for this last year?
I feel that I think that the industry standard is typically 95%, but I think we have two different systems. We look at the revenue that's coming in, and then also we have our brand new fare boxes. So I would say that we are 97%.
Okay. We've never had that before. On-time percentage for the past year. in Nampa?
The average on-time performance, so the current year is 72% on time.
Last year was about 70%.
I believe it was probably last year was around 70%. So with the changes in FY19 to the routing, looking at the schedules and the time points, so if you have a bus that's on a route, not every stop is a time point. So the time point is where we take for our on-time performance. So we are actually taking a look at the actual time that it takes to do that, and we are adjusting the time point times so that we hope that our on-time performance will be increased substantially.
And what percentage of each rider, the ticket, is subsidized by tax money?
So it's typically called fare box recovery ratio, and I don't have that for Nampa specifically, but I think that our fare box recovery ratio is about 10%. So that is, we recoup 10% of the cost of the ride.
And taking into account that we only get 10% back per rider, have you ever done a comparison of what it costs for the collecting and accounting of all the ridership as opposed to just eliminating that and giving people free rides?
We did a fare analysis a couple years ago, and it is back on our docket to look at it even further. We have one of the lowest fares in the country at $1 one way as a base fare, so we'll be looking at that. And then there has been, we did May in Motion, and we offered free rides. And it was actually really interesting with our bike share program. We actually increased our membership quite a bit. And I think with our May in Motion, our increase in ridership went up about 6% overall. So it is something that we can take a look at, but then that would require that our participating agencies would help us with to cover that funding.
Well, that's why I asked about the cost of the collecting and accounting, because it may be a net gain just to do that. I don't know. Have any private fundraisers, have any private fundraisers been held by VRT or any private contributions?
So in our specialized transportation, we do get quite a few. We received a grant from Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, and we received a grant from Blue Cross, and we receive other grants from typically St. Luke's. So we do go out and get that. Typically for our specialized transportation, we have a program called Rides to Wellness, which the hospitals have determined that it's actually cheaper for them to support those programs than to have to constantly rebook appointments that people have forgotten or not able to get to. So we are looking at specialized transportation programs that will allow us to do that, and then figuring out the sustainability of those. What is the match ratio? In Ada County, all operations are paid out 100% local. In Canyon County, it's 50-50. So our specialized transportation is typically a 50-50 match. We match St. Luke's, Laura Moore, Blue Cross with 50% federal for those. But how do we sustain this overall, knowing that those are typically competitive grants? So we're really looking into how we can do that.
But is there anything like fundraisers? Some organizations just raise funds and seek contributions from individuals.
I guess.
Are we just talking about grants?
We typically only look at grants, is what we do. Fundraising is what I'm doing tonight. So looking at our member agencies for that. We need something that is consistent and that we can plan around, and fundraising is typically not something that you can do that around.
Thank you.
Mayor, some questions. Thanks for the presentation. I was just looking at the federal funding. You said 80-20, so there's like a 4-to-1 multiplier on money. You said federal money, grant money for local projects that comes out to us?
So on $1 million project, you'll receive $800,000 in federal, and the city of Nampa would support the other $200,000.
Because we're part of the, we're participating members within.
Correct. But it also, those grant fund, those, I shouldn't say grant, those formula funds, they have to be within a half mile of a fixed route for a pedestrian, and then 3 miles for a bike. So
Yeah.
it can't just be anywhere within the city of Nampa.
I've seen that. Is there, maybe I can have lunch with Michael and try to understand a little bit, if there's a ceiling on how much money we get back and whether the multiplying money that's come back exceeds our contribution going in. It does. I see a head nod, but that can be confirmed over lunch. Okay. How are the metrics? What metrics are you using to determine what our share is in the paid rate? Because you had mentioned that the Ada County drivers were getting something around $18 or average with better benefits. And I realize that some routes they're getting on and getting off in Nampa. Some people are getting on and getting off in Ada County. So I was curious if any of our contributions are partially funding the costs of Ada County and how all that works.
So all the Ada County drivers drive within Ada County. The Canyon County drivers will drive within Canyon County, but then they also drive the inter-county routes, which take them into Ada County.
It's those inter-county routes that I was curious with how,
So
who's being dispatched as far as drivers and the compensation.
So those are viewed as Canyon County drivers, so their average is $13 per hour. They are not receiving the 18.
Okay.
So we do lose, I believe, that we lose drivers to the Ada County system based upon
I
that.
could understand why that would occur. Yes, okay.
And we all know the tough employment environment right now, trying to find good people.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you.
Is there anything else I can answer? So, I did bring a couple, I didn't bring enough for everyone, I just brought 4 is our Valley Connect plan, which talks about the future. It talks about where communities in motion states that we should be, and it takes a look at that and what it would actually take for us to get there. It's called our growth scenario, but we realize that funding, there's quite a bit of funding within that, so we put together an intermediate scenario as well. So I'll leave those with the clerk.
Are those accessible on your website?
It is.
Okay, so we can just go to your website and also access the same information? Great. Are there any further questions for Rhonda?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
Rhonda, how long have you been in your new position?
In my new position, I'm not in a new
You're
position.
not in a new position?
No, I'm not. I've been
Because
the,
normally there, I'm sorry, I'm not remembering her name, but normally there's been another presenter, a lady who has presented.
Kelly Badeshon, and she's the executive director of Valley Regional Transit, and I'm the development director, so I report directly to her.
Okay.
So
Anyway.
we've kind of.
Anyway, I'm just complimenting you that this is, to me, a much improved presentation
Thank you.
than what we've received in the past. So if you're the reason for that, thank you.
Well, I would like to, Brian Parker's our new planner, who's
Okay.
helped us out, and then Leslie Pedroza is our
I just see you
compliance.
put much more effort and time and than what I have seen in the past. So I just
Yep.
saying, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rhonda. Are there any further questions? I would assume none? Thank you. So at this time, we can, actually, as much as they would like to know what our position is on this funding, we also have our budget meetings coming up in July. And so should we get through those budget meetings, or, yeah, I see a nod?
Yep.
Yes. Okay, so Rhonda, it'll be following budget meetings that we'll let you know. So thank you very much. That was a great presentation. Okay, the next item under new business is the first reading of an ordinance to pass a street naming for Shoshone Avenue. Michael? For West Shoshone Avenue, excuse me.
Madam Mayor, there's a motion down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Do I have to read it first?
I
You have to
think that
read
we'll
it?
have to read the ordinance before we move forward. So, and Nate, are you prepared to read it?
Yes.
Okay, so Michael, I guess we don't need you to do anything. And before we read the ordinance, is there any further discussion? There's been a moved and seconded. Okay, so let's read the ordinance and then we'll take a roll call vote.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, correcting the name of West Shoshone Street to West Shoshone Avenue.
That was it?
So moved.
I'm sorry.
I'll continue my second.
Okay.
I'll second that
Any
motion,
further
I think.
discussion? Okay, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
And even though we voted, I do need to note that it was requested to pass under suspension of rules and the motion so stated. I mean, it's agreed. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so the next action item is to authorize the mayor to sign a memorandum of understanding with Winco Foods. Do we need Michael's report?
No,
No?
I'll make
Okay.
the motion.
No, I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay, action item number 5.4 is to authorize the mayor and public works director to sign a memorandum of understanding with the Nampa Highway District Number 1 regarding Happy Valley Road and Airport Road.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Who was the second?
Victor?
Hogaboom?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Action item number 5.5 is to authorize the mayor to sign a bid award contract with Big Bite, Inc. for Zone D pipe repairs, which is a CIPP project. And do we need Michael's staff report?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Madam Mayor, Council, there was a correction on the numbers from what was originally presented, and I don't recall what that correction number was. Came out maybe this afternoon.
Yes, there was. It's 758385545. Is that? Wait, that looks the same.
I think.
Oh, no, it's different. Yeah, it was
It's a different,
758794 in the original packet, and it's 758385 and 45 cents in the new correction.
If you make the motion with that new number, I don't have it in front of me. Maybe.
I'm a little tongue-tied tonight.
You're a preacher.
I make the motion.
Yeah.
I make the motion to authorize the mayor to sign bid award contract with Big Bite, Inc. for Zone D pipe repairs CIPP project with the amended amounts that were sent to us, in the total amount of $758,385.45.
Second.
Seth?
This is an amended motion then, right?
The motion would be amended to state, as Rick just stated, the correct dollar amount, is
So
that
my
correct?
motion went away.
Okay.
Okay.
That's what I wanted my clarification on. Because there was a motion and a second on the other one,
Right.
so, okay.
Do you want to
You
rescind
jumped
your,
on it. Go ahead. I was looking for the number, but I couldn't find it before Rick started his diatribe. So I will make my motion to adopt the request with the amended amount as mentioned by Councilman Hogaboom.
Yes.
thank you.
I'm
And
sorry,
the-
that wasn't a vote, just
Yeah.
And we had a second over.
And the
progress.
second.
Yes.
Based on the amended? Yes. Okay, any further discussion? Roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Did I get everybody?
Not me.
Oh, sorry. Hogaboom?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so item number 5.6 was the resolution for Republic Services. That has been postponed to the next meeting pending the rewrite of that resolution. And then item number 5.7 had been removed. So unless I am missing something, I believe this concludes the regular portion of our agenda. At this time, we will be moving into an executive session, and I'm going to read the three items that we're stepping into. So, and then after I read these, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. So actually, do we have to do a vote recall on every single one of these, or can I put them into one motion? Just one, okay. So we are going to be adjourning into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061C to acquire interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency. We are also going to be in an executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061 to consider labor union contracts authorized under Section 67-2345A, which is 74206A, 1A, and B according to Idaho Code. And then we will also be, we'll be looking for the motion to adjourn into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 742061D to consider records that are exempt from disclosure as provided in Chapter 1, Title 74 of Idaho Code. I would stand for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and roll call.
Brunner?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Skog?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hoageboom?
Yes.
And we might take just a 5-minute recess and take a break as we convene.
Mark?